Would you rather own 100% of a little grape or 10 to 30% of a massive watermelon? Welcome to the Nine Doors Down Show, where we discuss anything and everything about commercial real estate and investing. Let's get it.
Nine Doors Down.
John Lopez.
Nine Doors Down.
Hi, this is Tony Rose.
Nine Doors Down.
Hi, this is Anthony Pimentel.
Educating, capital raising, networking.
Nine doors down. Nine doors down.
Just call the show.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Nine Doors Down Show. Anthony, we have another special guest. This is another gentleman that I kind of met through you when I opened up my eyes to the investing space. I met him personally out in Phoenix. I forgot what event that was. It was I think it was a Ruben Breath with his capital raising, the Family Office Club.
Family office,
It was, yeah.
And what I like about this guy, man, he's always educating others, and I could tell he's educating newbies and even those that have been investing in real estate for a while through his LinkedIn posts, his educational emails that I see, and he's super active on social media. Our special guest, he goes by the name of Mr. Randy Smith. Randy is the founder of Impact Equity, which was formed to help investors achieve strong results in their passive real estate investing strategies. Randy and Impact Equity have helped more than 90 plus investors place over $6.2 million across 3 operators and 11 different opportunities since launching in just June of 2022. Randy started his real estate investing career doing out-of-state single-family long-term rentals, and he quickly realized the many additional benefits he could receive by switching his strategy to passively investing in multifamily syndications. Randy has now invested in 24 different passive investments with 9 different operators, which gives him a very unique knowledge and expertise to recognize a strong passive opportunity. Randy currently resides in Peoria, Arizona, along with his wife, Jenny, and he spent 25 years working in various business development and leadership roles in corporate America prior to starting Impact Equity. And so for our listeners at home, or if you're listening in your car, stuck in traffic, or you're in the shower, or you're doing dishes, let's welcome our featured guest, Mr. Randy Smith.
Wow. Well, what an introduction, John. Thanks so much for having me. You and Anthony have been really, really great to get to know. So glad to be here on your show.
Randy, it was only right that we asked you to hop on. Both of our investment firms kind of launched roughly around the same period of time. And I've been seeing your growth in the last couple of years. And me personally, I cannot help but to be inspired by what you're doing and how you help others.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. I think it's the space that we're both involved with. I think it's something that literally everybody needs to know about. And it's something like probably much like yourself. I didn't know hardly anything about this just 5 or 6 years ago. And there's this whole world of passive investing that the majority of the population doesn't know exists. And I think both of our companies are doing a really good job trying to spread that word. So yeah, I think it's an important topic that we're going to talk about more.
Yeah, Randy. So why do you think that the educational system just does not speak on investments in general, let alone syndications?
Yeah, good question. So I think ultimately what drives the education piece are dollars. And people need to be making dollars in order for them to be incentivized to share that information with the public. And, traditional stockbrokers, Wall Street, all of the traditional education platforms that people find their information about financial tools, they're not talking about this stuff because they're not involved and they can't earn commissions on presenting these to their investors. So it creates an environment where up until just a few years ago, this really was just kind of like the good old boys network would be the only way that you could find out about this stuff. But due to some recent changes in legislation, it's becoming more and more available to the general public. So I think it's an exciting time to be in this space, not only as an operator, but as a passive investor, because I think we're going to see a really, really big shift in this market over the next, 3 to 5 to 10 years.
Right. For me, as far as like the product you bring, like the Impact Equity to the public, I sense like a very strong sales and marketing background from your end. You want to touch on life prior to Impact Equity?
Sure. Yeah, no, I was, oh man, 25 years in corporate America. So I spent the very large portion of my career at two large Fortune 100 and Fortune 200 organizations, highly structured, very large brands, very, very different than the entrepreneurial world. Now, fortunately, in my last 10 years in corporate America, I was with American Express and I got to work in their small business division. So I got to meet and hang out with and build relationships with entrepreneurs and small business owners. So I got to really get into the mindset of that particular type of person. And coming from a family that, my parents owned a restaurant when I was growing up. They were small business owners. My brother owns a small business. I was always the guy sitting in corporate America getting the steady paycheck, but watching the entrepreneurs and wanting to have the flexibility and autonomy and, just see the creative juices that they get to take advantage of. So finally, a couple of years ago, 18 months ago, when I got laid off, I finally got to jump into entrepreneur world. So
you got laid off, huh?
yeah, I actually got laid off twice. Both of the companies I worked for 10 years, I got laid off from. And it's kind of an interesting thing too. Like people think that corporate America is safe. And I think to a certain extent it can be safe. But regardless of how good you do or the awards you win or the money you make, if corporate America decides that they're changing directions, they're going to change directions. And it doesn't matter how good you were or who you knew or anything. If you happen to be on whatever line it is on the Excel sheet that's getting laid off, you're getting laid off, and it doesn't matter what your boss or your boss's boss even thinks about it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can relate to that. It's like, it's really about what are you doing for them now, right? It's not what you've
yeah,
done for them. So it's kind of crazy, and that's how I kind of got into the entrepreneur venture that I'm in. But speaking about that, where or what made you get into real estate? Like out of all the different, you mentioned restaurants and other different business
yeah.
owners you spoke with. What did why real estate, and what kind of guided you towards that way?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of things that kind of factored into it. One, my dad, who worked for LA County Sheriff's Department for 35 years, he was an apartment owner in Los Angeles. He owned 100 units in Los Angeles, like during the 70s and 80s. And while he was working for the Sheriff's Department, he didn't make great money, but he did okay. But he ended up doing really, really well with his real estate. And so it's kind of like a rich dad, poor dad type of thing. So that was my dad living out there. My mom and my stepdad living in Northern Michigan owned a restaurant, and they worked their fingers to the bone for 20 years, and they sold the thing for a loss. So I had these conflicting ideas about, real estate doing really well, my parents' small business kind of struggling. And then I brought that into my time at American Express, where I was sitting down with owners and C-level executives in small businesses for almost 10 years. And I got to meet plumbers, electricians, HR companies, like any type of company you can ever possibly imagine. And there were really two different types of businesses that I found. There were businesses that were basically centered around an entrepreneur, and it was just basically a decent paying job that they had to work 60 to 80 hours a week just to keep the thing afloat. And then there was this other type of business, which was somewhat self-sustaining. It was managed by the employees or the leadership. And then the entrepreneur just he would play quite a bit, but then he would also get to be heavily involved more in the strategic, bigger picture thinking. So I found that a large portion of those guys were involved with something around real estate. So that really kind of piqued my interest. And after, literally meeting with probably 1,000 plus small businesses, it was clear that I wanted to get into that side of the business versus, just creating another job for myself ultimately.
I love that, Randy. I'm catching a common theme on this show right now. You're probably like the third or the fourth individual that we've met that has come from American Express.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, are in your circle, are you bumping into like several people that like come from American Express and then and is now diving into real estate?
So, I mean, obviously they were my peers for a lot of years, and we used to chase each other around the stack rank, being in sales background. So yeah, I know a bunch of people from American Express, and I think, there's a culture there that really breeds kind of independent thinkers, people that kind of lone wolf, so to speak, depending on the division that you're in. But yeah, there's a bunch of us there for sure.
That's fascinating. I'm gonna dig into that just a little bit more because I come from the AT&T side of things, and I haven't
Okay.
necessarily bumped into AT&T guys diving into
Sure.
real estate as much just yet. But I know as far as like corporate leadership, I see the structure in AT&T, and then I've kind of like relayed that on to like what I'm doing now. But let's dive into like your current operations. Anthony and I, we host several meetups, here in Las Vegas, SoCal, as well as in the Bay Area.
Yep.
And a lot of people that we're bumping into, either they graduated from a very reputable mastermind. There's so many here on the West Coast, but a
Yep.
lot of them seem to struggle in getting into their first deal. Now, it either could be a combination of like everybody just wants to go for the home run, they want to sponsor a deal, they want a GP, but a lot of people, they don't really see the powers of building a track record first by raising capital,
Yep.
building up your investor pipeline, and then maybe even LPing into a deal, maybe raising 500K to $1 million on your first round. What advantages have you seen in your experience in the last couple of years going that route by raising capital for other deals? Welcome to the course on raising capital for investments. In this course, we'll cover the following topics. 1, analyzing your investment strategy. Number 2, discovering potential investors. 3, crafting your pitch. 4, securing your investment. 5, our cheat code. We'll round out the program with our very own cheat code for getting in front of investors and being ready to pitch your investment opportunities. Take action today. Visit schoolofninedoorsdown.com and learn to attract capital.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. A lot of people, there's a lot of marketing around gurus and people that are really presenting this thing of, come join my weekend event or my mastermind and spend your, 2, 3, 5, 10, 50, $100,000, and we're going to make you a syndicator, or we're going to make you an operator or a flipper or whatever it is. And, I think it's probably true in any type of business that you're in, but usually there's a small population of the people that are getting stuff done. Very few people that will actually take action and follow the direction that they're given. And, a lot of people will sit on the sidelines. I don't know if they want to have it handed to them, or they're afraid, or they're concerned they're not going to be successful, or they're too concerned what people are going to think, but for whatever reason, they just don't take action. So I feel personally that it's more important to make a decision and take action than it is to make the perfect decision. Because once you have that momentum behind you and you're going in some direction, you can always readjust and try something else. So, in my experience, I came in as and albeit I sat on the sidelines for a long time, probably too long. I didn't get into real estate investing until I was in my mid-40s. Okay. But once I did get in, I was a massive action guy, and I bought 6 houses in less than a year. I ended up selling those houses pretty quickly and putting everything into passive investments. And since I'm the sales guy, I'm a screaming from the mountaintop guy, everybody that was within standing or shouting distance of me knew what I was doing, and they got excited about it and decided to come on board. So clearly I was able to identify what my superpower was, which was communication and talking about and getting excited and being able to really kind of make very complicated types of structures and strategies down into very bite-sized, understandable communications, and people just came on board. So figuring out what your superpower is and taking action, I think, is really the best way to go.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Now, take me back to kind of like after you sold all those properties, did you go vet out like the right the operators, or was there a specific area you were looking to invest in? And then after that, maybe just talk about your first raise. your first true raise for your
Yeah.
company?
Yeah, so mine was just kind of dumb luck, honestly. I ended up investing. I think by the time I got laid off, I had invested in 12 or 15 deals. So I was a
Oh,
pretty heavy passive investor.
okay.
Large portion of my monthly expenses were covered by my passive income at that point. And I had invested pretty heavily with an operator that you guys work with as well. And I had referred quite a bit of money to him just from my network because, like I said, I was shouting from the mountaintop. So all the guys at work were sick and tired of hearing about it. People in my personal network were hearing me talk about it constantly. So I just referred a bunch of people to this operator. And when I ended up getting laid off, he and I had a discussion, the operator, and he asked if I might consider this fund to fund model, which you guys know well. And I just took a leap. It was a scary time. I didn't have a job anymore, and I was having to figure out pretty quickly what was going to happen next. I just jumped in. I sent some messages on LinkedIn to people that I knew, and next thing you know, I had raised about $1 million over a few weeks, and I was off and running. So it was pretty cool.
That is massive, Randy. So from 1 mil in your first raise.
It was 830,000 to be exact.
Wait,
Yeah.
we'll round it up. That is a big feat. So
Yeah.
what was your avatar in that round for your raising?
So my avatar at first was anybody who would stand still long enough to listen to me. Yeah, like literally anybody and everybody. Yeah, there was no science behind the avatar other than anybody that would talk to me. Yeah.
That's great, man. So and with your background, I asked this to the previous guests. There's a lot of important components to running a successful, real estate business. But as far as two categories, which I think you have a very strong background in, out of the two, sales or marketing, which one do you think is more important for an organization?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think they're probably equally important. I think you need to have the marketing resources behind you to share a message and communicate to the broader audience, but you need to be able to connect and convert with somebody on the phone as well. I don't think there's a lot of organizations that can just have great marketing channels and funnels, and that'll lead to people writing $100,000 checks or wiring funds. I think you need to have that personal connection before they're willing to do that. If for any reason, just to kind of support and build that relationship long term. So people, something I heard years ago, like people make decisions on sales decisions based on emotions, and then they find facts to support their emotional decision. And emotions are very hard to inspire just by marketing material or content. I think you need to have the one-on-one connection personally. And, coming from a sales background, I've got to see the difference between phone sales, both inbound and outbound, and then face-to-face. And as a phone sales guy, I always want to make the argument that I could sell anything over the phone that somebody could sell face-to-face until I became a face-to-face salesperson. And I found out very, very quickly, it's very different to sit nose to nose with somebody and be able to connect with somebody to help inspire them to make decisions and move forward. So.
Awesome. That's an awesome story. I'm horrible at sales. I'm horrible at marketing. I'm gonna tell you right now. And I'm glad, John and I connected, and he's exactly what I needed for, to form Nine Doors Down, is because of his skills, being in in AT&T in sales. It's really
Yep.
helped us scale. Now, real quick, so when you after you did your first raise of 800,000, which is amazing, right? What were you thinking? Were you like, okay, I think I can do this again? Or what was kind of like your train of thought, like whether you could actually scale this business, or what do you want to do next, or even sponsor your own deal?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've had that struggle back and forth where it's do I just go all in and be a capital raiser? Do I become the guy who's bringing capital to all deals? Because all deals from now until the end of time will always need capital, right? So do I want to become that guy, or do I want to become the guy who's getting his hands dirty and actually operating the entities? And fast forward 18 months, I still don't know the answer to that. I'm gravitating towards the capital raising space, just simply because that's where my expertise lies. I've become very, very good at vetting deals and operators. And, at this point, I think I put 13 deals now in front of my investors over the last, 19 or 20 months. I think it's a skill that's needed. So I'm moving a little bit to where a portion of my business, I'm going to start partnering with some operators and become more hands-on, but still really my major role will be in the capital stack and trying to bring dollars to those deals. So I don't know, we'll see. Then I get some wild hair thinking maybe I want to do some flips as well, just for fun, because that was a lot of fun while I was doing that as well. So
Well, you're a testament of how your actions dictate your future. What's cool about what I'm hearing is you're giving advice to so many people that Anthony and I has given so many times to our students and the people that we meet at meetups. A multifamily or any real estate, investment, you do need a solid underwriter. You need that operations, you need that asset management guy, right?
yeah.
But if you cannot bring capital or bring equity to the closing table, all of that hard work will just die in vain. Why do you think it's because we think it's just actually an easier path to get into real estate if you could train yourself to become a successful capital raiser? What is
Yep.
it about capital raisers that we kind of hold the money bag? And are you now seeing operators knocking on your door? Randy, please raise for us. Please, we got this deal in the next
Yeah.
30, 60, 90 days.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, if you can figure out the capital raising space, you will never be without work or opportunity ever again. It is something that most people can't crack. They can't figure it out. I think everybody out there thinks they can be a capital raiser until they actually ask the question and try to raise some capital. So, to your point where it's an easier path in, I would agree with you, but it's not something that I think everybody can do. I've seen a lot of people throw a lot of time and energy and effort and resources at a capital raising effort and then show up with a goose egg or, 50 or 100 grand or maybe a couple of investors. Like building a business around this is much more than just networking and talking to a few people. Top of funnel strategy is a challenging space to figure out and to crack. But once you do, yes, like if you can bring 500 to $1 million a deal consistently, people are going to be tearing down your door to come work with them. So
Yeah, and to touch on like what you said, like I've seen the loudest voices out there struggle with a raise, and I've seen an introvert personality
yep,
kick major butt with capital raises, and you
absolutely.
wouldn't. It doesn't sound like they're marketing or they're educating, but they're resonating with a certain frequency or a certain personality that does attract that capital.
Yeah, no doubt. I think avatar selection is very important, but I think you can also picking the right avatar is important. So if you pick the wrong avatar, it could be a lot of wasted energy and space. But I think people, you hear the cliche constantly, like people invest with people they know, like, and trust. People know, like, and trust people that are transparent and genuine and really share who they are, not just some talking head that's spouting, bullet points at people. So my biggest wins come when I'm being vulnerable generally and sharing like the true Randy to my investors so that that connection actually occurs. And then from there, it really just becomes people spend far less time like asking questions about the details on the deal and just more about like, Randy, what do you think? Is this a good one or is this not a good one? And with, once I give the nod, people will write a check before even listening to the whole deck quite often. So, or listening to the whole webinar or reading the whole deck.
That's a great point because I think a lot of investors probably don't watch the whole video. There's probably a rare, like small amount that would actually go through all the details. It's really about you, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I know you provide so much education and information about the market for your investors. Now, what is your outlook for 2024 and kind of the future and what you're kind of telling your investors to look out
Yeah.
for?
Yeah, so I'm excited about 2024. I think 2023 was the hard year, and it just so happens to be the year that you guys and myself had our first full year in the business. So I don't know if that was fortunate or unfortunate, but I think the work that we've done in the prior 24 months is really going to pay off for all of us in 2024. And what I share with investors all the time is if a deal was a good deal in 2023 at the top of the market and values are down now 20 to 30%, today's deals are significantly better than anything that we've seen in the last couple of years. So there's a lot of distrust in the marketplace. So we're going to see a lot of those deals coming to market where people are going to have to move quickly. Operators are out there and they're doing everything they can to save these deals. But I think at times they're waiting too long and they're going to get themselves in a position where they're going to have to exit, and that will ultimately drive the value down on their asset. I think we're going to see at least 3 cuts from the Fed this year. I have one economist that I follow that he thinks we're going to have 5 drops in the rate this year, which would be very good news for folks. I think that would save a lot of deals that are out there, and it's just going to create awesome opportunities throughout this year and into 2025 is my belief.
A man with a vision is dangerous, is what I've said on this podcast before. So
It's true.
So you built a strong reputation around multifamily, right? And I also see you have your short-term offerings for your investors. So I see you diversifying, right? So
Yep.
on the equity side, right? And diversifying along that. But now rumor has it that you're also diversifying into the debt space. Is there anything you could tell our listeners of like what you're going to be doing as far as debt and why debt?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'm super excited about 24 for that reason specifically, is that when I launched Impact Equity in June of 22, the goal and the vision and the idea was to create a single source of diversification in passive investments for my investors. So diversification across asset class, business model, operator, and then region of the country as well. And now within that, I wanted to be able to provide answers for both the cash flow investor and the growth investor. So up to this point, it's primarily been growth investor with some cash flow benefits. My partnership with Lone Star gave me a little bit better cash flow, and then my partnership with TechFester gave me even better cash flow opportunities. But there was still this missing piece where a lot of investors have the option of throwing money in a high yield savings account and getting 4.25%, 4.5%, sometimes 5%, right? We saw even this year. And I wanted to have an answer for that as well. So through my networking and through one of the masterminds that I'm a part of in GoBundance, I found an operator called DLP, which stands for Dream, Live, Prosper is what they stand for. And it's a guy by the name of Don Winter, who is a GoBundance member. And he started out as a flipper. Then he started out lending to flippers. Then he started doing multifamily. And then he brought in lending to multifamily. Then he started doing RV and development and started lending to those groups as well. And he actually created a fund in 2014 to lend to, basically in his space. And he's provided on average 12% returns since he launched over almost 10 years ago. So I'm going to be able to leverage this fund to fund model and share those returns with my investors to provide monthly distributions, in the 8 to 9+% range. And it's going to be 90-day liquid, which means that they can ask for their money back at any point, and I'll be able to give them their money back within 90 days or sooner. So it answers that cash flow need that everybody needs. And it also answers the liquidity piece, which hardly anybody else in the marketplace, except for guys like you, are offering that type of solution. So I'm just super excited about it. And I think it's an easy entry point for passive investors to come in and put some dollars in this space. And as they build trust with operators like you and I, they'll get more comfortable putting dollars into longer term investments like the equity plays in multifamily and other markets. So
I think what you're doing is beautiful, Randy, because the equity guys, they're thinking the long term, but as of late, they were like, you know what, I could use an extra couple $100 every single month. So now you're educating them along with the debt. Then now for the debt guys that you're bringing on, next thing you know, they got capital gains. And that's when your
Absolutely.
equity offerings start to come in play. So you're gonna just literally be recycling deals
Yeah.
back and forth if you play this right, which I think you're gonna play this very well.
That's the goal. And I think more important than benefit impact equity, I think it's going to impact the investors very positively and just create, this environment where passive investors getting great returns consistently over time. They share with their friends and family and networks, and more people get access to the space. And that's the overall goal here is let's give people the ability to invest in deals that 2 years ago they wouldn't have even known about.
Yeah, when we first started our fund, maybe this is probably around same time last year, we lowered the investment amount for our existing investors
I saw that.
because we wanted them to see us as a quote unquote glorified savings account, right?
Mhm.
So if they're going to deals that has like a 2x multiple or like 15% IRR, that's beating what they're getting as far as the savings. But now your group and in our group, we're now taking a step further and we're starting to really think like a bank at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Which brings a whole nother set of challenges working for a bank for 10 years, I can tell you about. But yeah, it'll be a fine line that we'll want to make sure to stay within compliance while still providing the best solutions for our clients for sure.
Absolutely. And as far as your deals, I know one operator is a 506B. As far as on the debt side, are you treating it as a 506B or a 506C?
No, so my debt offering will be a 506c offering, only for accredited investors. And a lot of the operators in the space are moving over to this fund to fund model, which limits passive investors that are not accredited as well. So I am doing my very best to always have one or two 506b offerings in my mix because non-accredited investors need to have access to this stuff as well. So I think it's important that, as groups like yours and mine get bigger and bigger, that we still keep 506Bs in our network to make sure that we're still taking care of those non-accredited investors.
Speaking of the 506B and C, kind of like which do you prefer? I mean, we always stuck with kind of the 506B, reaching out, to our potential investors, building that relationship. Kind of give us the pros and cons of both.
Yeah, so I don't know, 506Cs, we end up having to chase accreditation letters, which can be challenging. Some people just simply don't want to provide that information that is required to do the accreditation verification process. It's an added step in the investment process, which can slow things down and hurt momentum, I think, with investor interest. But I think there's a place for it. I think it's important to have, and partly why I ended up partnering with TechFester in March of last year was that I wanted to be able to share in social platforms everything that I was doing and advertise. I wanted the broader network to see it. And the thought was, what by always having a 506c that allows me to always have that out in public to inspire people to get into my portal, to schedule a call with me, and then ultimately they can, as we build a relationship, have access to those 506b deals. So I think it fits in both different places. I like probably more than anything the operators that do the 506b to C conversions, so you can take advantage of your non-accredited investors and then publish for the final raise. But I think there's a place for all of these for sure. And I think, with the SEC requirements and definitions of accreditation potentially changing in the next 12 to 18 months, I think it'll be important to capture as many of those as you possibly can this year before any changes occur.
I love that, Randy. Now, and I like it because you're still continuing with the equity side. You're going to build up the debt side, and I can totally see you being successful. And then Anthony and I, we've kind of joked around with this with others. It's like, what's our vision 3-4 years down the road? Are we going to go into venture capital? Is that something you've ever thought about in the back of your mind?
So I dealt in my days at American Express, I dealt with a lot of those organizations, and they look very much like large corporate America, which I'm doing my very best to stay away from. So I don't see going down that path. I'm in a position where I want to help as many people as I can in this space without having to create, 100-person business or 100-employee business. So I think I'll probably stay smaller in that space. if anything, we'll continue to see more operators vetted, more asset classes vetted, just hopefully more services and education coming from impact equity.
As far as like what you've seen in the last few years, you've had a lot of good experience with operators, and I'm sure you've had some bad moments as well.
Sure.
But what do you look for in a reputable operator, whether it's a multifamily side, whether it's short term, or whether it's someone that you could invest with for flips?
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's the most important question is how do you vet operators? And my vetting process has evolved quite a bit over the years, and we've all seen the 100 questions to ask an operator. I think certainly track record speaks more volume than really anything at this point. And I think it's important to actually get to know the operators. Anybody can put together a deck that shows great performance and shows great returns, but have they done it historically? And if they haven't done it historically, what have they done historically? So like a guy like yourself, you worked for AT&T for years, like you had a track record before you had a track record there before you had a track record here. So what does your prior track record say about you? You can never have the experience of a specific market until you have the experience of the market or the asset class. But you as an individual have shown up in a way throughout your life that will translate into anything that you do. I think it's important to get to know people. And when times get hard and things get difficult and challenges start to come up and mistakes are made, because mistakes are made, how is that operator going to show up? And are they going to be able to bring integrity into their decisions and selflessness into their decisions and make sure that the investors are ultimately taken care of? I wish I had a more concrete answer than get to know the operators. But at the end of the day, if you're writing a $50,000 or $100,000 check to an operator, you should know those folks and feel very comfortable with them. So that's kind of the long answer short. So.
Yeah. And just to add to that, it's like I agree with you. Those exactly just kind of see what their track record looks like, how they I guess react to challenges, because you just don't know what's going to happen in the market.
Yep.
And what we've done with Nine Doors is we've personally invested with our operators even prior to sharing them with our investors, which is that helps us sleep good at night. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it helps your investors sleep good at night, I would imagine.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, I had a business coach for about a year, and I had limited my offerings to those that I had personally invested in. And I had limited the actual deals as well. Like if I couldn't put money in myself, then I didn't want to put it in front of my investors. And my coach actually challenged me on that. He said, if you can get to a point where your due diligence, it checks all the boxes from your due diligence, and you would invest if you had the capital, why would you keep that from your investors just simply because you don't have the capital yourself? Because doing like myself, I've done 13 deals in the last 18 months. That's $1 million if I'm placing money in every one of those deals. And,
Right.
I've already got 24 LP positions. So, at some point I need to be able to trust my due diligence and then translate that to my investors as well. And not limit the opportunities for my investors because of that, is my belief.
That's a giver's gain mentality.
Giver's gain, the go-giver. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
You've read the book.
No, you know what? Not yet. That is next on my list, but it's ironic, Randy. Like in the last month or so, I've been hearing that terms more and more, even outside the real estate space. So it's like the universe is telling me, like, John, it's time for you to read it.
It's time. Yeah, very good.
I would love to chat with you for like another 3-4 hours, but I know time is limited. We'll just go to just a few more questions before we wrap things up. You kind of touched on this earlier. Tell the listeners, what is your superpower?
Yeah, my superpower, I think, is one, connecting and communicating with others, individuals, but probably more important than that, or dependent upon that, is my ability to take complex ideas and then share them in an easy to understand way. For the last 20 years of my career, that's been what I've been focusing on. And that, I think, is what has given me, the upper hand in a lot of situations. So
I love that. The next two questions that we have could possibly be the most difficult questions you've ever faced in your life. So are you ready?
oh my goodness, that's quite the buildup, man. Wow. I don't know if I am or not, but hit me.
So this is a round where we want our listeners to get to know the not so professional side of you. So the first
Okay.
question is, you're stuck on an island all by yourself, no friends, no family, but you can bring your iPhone or Android or whatever smartphone, but you're only able to load up one musical artist or one album on your device. What would that artist or album be?
Wow. Musical artist, huh? Oh,
We told you it's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. I mean, what phase in my life would you like to hear about? My wife and I's wedding song there's a lot of Jack Johnson in there right now, so very quiet, casual, good stuff there. But back in the day, I was a big Metallica, AC/DC, heavy metal guy. And there was, a rap and hip hop section in there as well. So it's hard to say, but today I'm more of a Jack Johnson, easily listening, slow and yeah, so that's kind of where we'd be right now.
Jack Johnson, he's the one with banana pancakes, right?
He is, yes.
I actually have a routine to some of his stuff, man.
Nice.
Yeah, this is from
nice. Yeah.
from like 3-4 months ago. Good, easy listening while you're driving, or you just want to just wind down and just like clear your mind.
That's it.
All right. Then my question is, I'm not sure if you like to travel, but would you prefer tropical or mountainous area? And if so, where would it be?
Yeah, so my wife and I have spent quite a bit of time in Maui over the last decade or so. So we got a little spot in Kihei that we really love, and just love the island. So I'm more of a tropical guy. But my daughter and I have gotten into skiing together quite a bit lately. So it's pretty hard to say. It depends. If I'm going with my wife, probably tropical. If I'm going with my daughter, probably the mountains. So
Awesome. You like snowboarding and skiing, or?
I'm a skier. I grew up skiing. So
All right,
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, Randy, how can our listeners get a hold of you? Your social media, website, emails.
Yeah, the website is impactequity.net. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn, so Randy Smith on LinkedIn, and I do have a podcast called The Gentle Art of Crushing It, and I host the Thursday editions, which are geared towards the newer passive investor. So reach out anywhere. Always happy to hop on a phone call or DM about this stuff. Yeah.
I love it. For our listeners out there, definitely follow this guy, Randy. He's making moves and he's welcoming others to join his successful journey. So follow him, guys. On that note, everyone, thank you for tuning in to the Nine Doors Down show. You can catch us on all your favorite podcast platforms, including YouTube podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Please give us a like and a follow. And on that note, we out.
Peace.
Thanks, guys.